I know a lot of you are panorama heroes. So in this video I will analyze in depth the panorama mode in the DJI Air 2S. I will show how to make the most of stitched JPEG file generated by the DJI Fly app. For more advanced users, I will show how to save the individual photo as RAW file to process them and stitch them together using third-party software. I have done videos about the panorama mode with the Mini 2, with the Mavic Air 2 and the Mavic 2 Pro. They've always been quite popular, as many users love drone panoramas, and rightly so. Drones are the perfect tool for this technique, and with the point of view up in the sky, we can achieve a very interesting wide view without obstacles, even in the case of sphere, where the image is almost 360 degrees. When we use the sphere and 100-degree modes for two-dimensional photos, there is a strong distortion and a very unusual representation of familiar scenes. This opens the door to great creative possibilities, and in many cases it is great fun. Another big perk of panorama photos is the big increase in resolution, especially interesting if we are planning to print in large format, or to crop the photo deeply. For this usage, the most useful modes are wide angle and vertical, as they have less distortion and are therefore closer to the real scene. With the Mavic 2 Pro I have reached a whopping 244 megapixel resolution, and the Air 2S has a sensor of the same size, so I expect similar results. I am very impressed by the quality of photo taken with the Air 2S. I especially like the very natural, beautiful colors and the resistance to flare, so I have high expectations for panoramas with this drone. We access panorama mode via the video photo button above the shutter, on the right part of the menu, through the icon at the bottom. The menu to the left will display 4 icons for different pano modes: sphere, 180 degrees, wide angle and vertical. Note that we can only access the panorama function when the drone is flying. We can now choose whether we want to keep each individual file for the photo taken either in RAW or in JPEG format, and we can do it directly from the main screen of DJI Fly app, which is much faster, while in previous version we have to go back to the settings. DJI Fly will automatically stitch a JPEG panorama, as you can see from the line on top labeled Output. There is no choice for the file format, only JPEG is available. By choosing to save the original photos, we can then process the images for more control, and then stitch them together using other programs, as we will see later. We can then choose the exposure mode. If we click on the icon on the bottom right, we toggle from auto exposure to manual, labeled as Pro. In manual mode we can modify the values for shutter speed and ISO, but notice that first we need to tap on the yellow icon Auto, which will turn white and allow us to modify the value. In auto mode we can still modify the EV value for the overall exposure. If we choose the sphere mode, the drone will shoot 26 photos in rapid succession, practically a 360-degree view over 3 rows of photos. 180 degrees mode shoots 21 photos. In the wide-angle mode, 9 photos are taken, 3 rows and 3 columns. Finally, vertical consists of a column of 3 photos. While shooting the images, the drone will rotate and tilt to optimize the amount of overlap between each shot. While shooting, under the shutter icon, a numeric indicator will show the progression of the process in percentage. Note that after having shot all photos, it will be still busy for a few more seconds, as the app is stitching the automatic JPEG panorama. There are a few issues that are specific to panoramas and need to be considered when planning the shots. First of all, the stitching software needs several reference points to do the job properly. Therefore, it is better to avoid scenes with a big portion taken by uniform elements, like water or the sky. As an example, in this panorama, with a big portion of the scene being the sea and the sky, the software failed to stitch the image properly. The main thing to consider with sphere panoramas, and to a lesser extent with the 100-degree ones, is that the full sun will always be in the shot, as well as elements on the ground. Therefore, the scene will have a huge dynamic range, and it will be extremely hard or impossible to expose correctly. I strongly suggest avoiding shooting sphere panorama with the full sun. It is much better to choose a day when the sun is covered by clouds, or to shoot just after sunset or before sunrise. It is obviously very important to expose for the highlights, making sure that the area around the sun is not overexposed, as nothing can be done to fix burned highlights. The shadows will be very dark, but in most cases it is possible to recover them. Another thing to avoid is the use of polarizing filters, as they react differently according to the angle of light. Therefore, the sky will be uneven in the shots composing the panorama, and severe banding can be caused. In theory, ND filter should not cause issues, but some of them can cause some polarizing effect. I would suggest avoiding any filters. Sphere takes an entire 360-degree photo and replicates it in a two-dimensional space. So there is a lot of distortion, and the proportions of the scene are modified, thus creating an unexpected and at times surreal look that I really like. This mode can really push creativity. I suggest taking more than one shot for each scene, pointing the camera in a different direction, as the result can be very different from what is expected. As we will see later in this video, with Sphere it is possible to post interactive 360-degree images on social medias. The viewer will be able to move around the image. It is also possible to generate the famous tiny planet view. 180-degree is similar to Sphere, but the distortion and the surreal effect are less pronounced. We are somewhere between Sphere and a normal pano photography. With a bit of care, it is possible to keep the sun out of the frame. It gives a very nice sense of width to a scene. In wide-angle mode, the distortion is almost completely gone, and we are very close to a regular photo, but with a much higher resolution. Together with vertical, this is the best mode to use for large prints or for deep crops. Vertical is most suitable for tall subjects, like buildings or mountains, or for a different perspective of a landscape. Right after shooting the panorama, DJI Fly App stitches the images in a JPEG file. This file can be accessed via the album directly on the app, and shared on social media if you feel the urge. In the case of a sphere panorama, the file can be shared on Facebook as an interactive 360-degree image. The viewer will be able to move around the photo. The file will be also saved on the memory disk. There will be two different folders, one named Panorama, containing the individual file of each shot, if this option was chosen, while another folder named 100 Media will contain the auto-generated files. In the previous models of the Mavic line, the quality of the JPEG file was nothing to write home about it, with severe column banding and other artifacts, but it has improved with the Mavic Air 2 and even more with the Air 2S. Being a JPEG file, we only have limited possibilities for color grading. And since with Panorama in most cases we have some serious color correction to do, I strongly suggest the next method. As we have seen at the beginning of this video, we have the possibility of saving each individual photo as a RAW file, color correct them using Lightroom or any other RAW processing software. In this case, I'm using Exposure XSys. The benefit of this method is that we have a much wider latitude to recover the shadows and reduce the dynamic range. Panorama photos are in most cases very demanding in terms of post-processing. There are plenty of programs allowing to stitch panoramas together, some for free, other at a cost, and other integrated into software packages like Lightroom or Photoshop. In a previous video about Panorama, I have shown in depth the workflow with Lightroom. Click on this link if you're interested. In this tutorial I have used two different programs. Hugin is free, works both on Windows and Mac, and gives in most cases good results, but on my computer it is extremely slow. I've also used Microsoft Eyes, which doesn't offer many options, but it is much faster. Both programs can stitch RAW files and generate a JPEG final panorama, or else it is possible to process the photo as RAW, export them to JPEG, and then stitch them. In the last couple of days I processed almost 100 panos to test the process. There have been a couple of instances where one of the two programs failed to produce a suitable panorama, but I was able to do it with the other program. So they are both relatively reliable, although their interfaces are rather basic. I'm not showing here how this program works, otherwise this video would be way too long. I might do a specific one about it. Let me know if you're interested. For hardcore panorama users, there is a premium software called DJI that is widely considered the best option for professional panoramas. It has a much more user-friendly interface with much more user control, and seems to be able to do everything, including spherical interactive panorama to embed in web pages, HDR panoramas, Tiny Planet, and so on. DJI is priced at €125 for the basic version and €250 for the Pro. Let me know in the comment below if you're interested in a review of this program. There is also the option for full manual panoramas, by optimizing the exposure of each shot or taking bracket exposure photos for a HDR pano, and then manually rotate and tilt the camera for the correct amount of overlap. It is the option that gives the best results, but obviously is much more time consuming. Let me know if you're interested in a specific video on manual panos for panorama warriors. Click on these links to see my videos about photography and hyperlapses with the excellent R2S. If I will do more specific videos about panorama, I will add the link here. If you enjoyed the video, click on the like button, it really helps the channels. Thank you.